Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Our top story: the U.S. and Vietnam just sealed a major trade deal with new tariffs. One key measure targets goods sneaking into the U.S. through Vietnam, and it's got Beijing on edge. Trade tensions easing, the U.S. lifting export restrictions on advanced chip design software to China. 3 industry giants confirmed they've received the green light. Chinese leader Xi Jinping will skip this year's BRICS summit, his first absence in 12 years in office. What does this say about his grip on power? And Taiwan is preparing both soldiers and civilians in its largest annual military drill. Preparations kicked off this week amid growing threats of a possible invasion from China.
All our various combat capabilities rely on this exercise to deter the CCP from its position of wanting to invade.
Before we dive into today's news, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter using the link below. Starting this week, our newsletter is getting a fresh new format. Instead of covering a broad sweep of China news, we'll zero in on 1 to 2 hot topics, giving you a deep dive that goes beyond the headlines. Plus, a behind-the-scenes peek you won't see on air. In tomorrow's newsletter, we're taking a closer look at China's grip on rare earth minerals and what it means for your wallet, your tech, and U.S. national security. It drops Friday morning straight to your inbox. Don't miss it. A major trade breakthrough in Southeast Asia, President Trump announcing a new trade deal with Vietnam. After months of talks, both countries reached an agreement on Wednesday to slash tariffs. Vietnamese goods heading to the U.S. will now face a 20% tariff, down from 46%. And in return, Vietnam will drop tariffs on American exports altogether, meaning U.S. products can enter the country tariff-free. At the same time, Trump is also issuing a warning. If goods from third countries, like China, are routed through Vietnam to bypass U.S. tariffs, those shipments will face a steep 40% tariff. The move is aimed at what experts call a backdoor for Chinese goods, a common tactic used to avoid high U.S. tariffs. China responded Thursday, saying it opposes any trade deals made at the expense of its interests. Some U.S. companies are expected to benefit from the new U.S.-Vietnam trade deal. Here's more.
It could spell relief for companies like Nike. Donald Trump says he will put 20% tariffs on Vietnam's exports to the U.S. That was lower than expected, meaning it may be good news for firms like the sportswear giant, which makes many of its goods in the country. Trump announced the news in a social media post on Wednesday, and it comes just days before his July 9th deadline for countries to strike trade deals. Vietnam had faced a 46% tariff from that day without the new agreement. However, details on the pact were in short supply. It wasn't immediately clear which products the 20% rate would apply to, or whether some goods could face lower or higher duties. The Vietnamese government offered no such details in a statement celebrating what it called a trade framework. But it said it would commit to providing preferential access for US goods in return, including for large-engined cars. Under the deal, transshipments from third countries through Vietnam will still face a 40% levy. That's aimed at products largely made in China, but then labelled as Made in Vietnam. But one trade expert told Reuters that transshipping was an ill-defined term, subject to a lot of interpretation. Talks with Vietnam had been closely watched, with the country a fast-growing export powerhouse. Since 2018, its shipments to the US have nearly trebled, from less than $50 billion that year to $137 billion in 2024. By contrast, US exports to the country have risen only 30% over the same period. Attention now turns to other possible deals. Trump has said he's optimistic about agreement with India, but expressed doubts over any deal with Japan.
Chinese products trying to sneak into the U.S. with a Made in Vietnam label, that won't be so easy going forward. The U.S. is imposing a 40% tax on goods transshipped through Vietnam, meaning products originally from third countries, like China, will face tougher barriers to bypass high U.S. tariffs.
They buy $90 billion from China, then they mark it up and send it to us.
So they're
just a pathway of China to us.
The key issue is what exactly counts as transshipped goods and whether all of them will fall under the 40% levy. For example, are these products completely made in a third country or are significant parts sourced from China? There are also questions about cases where the money comes from China or a Chinese national owns a factory in Vietnam. The details of the agreement remain unclear. The lead economist at the Australian think tank Lowy Institute told the Washington Post that, quote, "It'll be a lot more trouble if the U.S. broadly applies tariffs to any Vietnamese product with Chinese content." In a sign of easing trade tensions with China, the U.S. government has reportedly lifted export restrictions on advanced chip design software. Siemens, Synopsys, and Cadence, all leaders in the semiconductor industry, say they received official confirmation from the Commerce Department on Thursday. Siemens says it has already restored full access to its technology and resumed sales and support for Chinese customers. Synopsys and Cadence say they are working to do the same. The restrictions were first imposed in May. U.S. companies were required to get special licenses to sell the software to China. Meanwhile, the U.S. has also cleared the way to resume exports of ethane, a major industrial material, to China. The U.S. government sent letters to producers, enterprise products partners, and Energy Transfer, rolling back a restrictive license requirement put in place just weeks ago. It's official, Beijing confirming that Chinese leader Xi Jinping will skip the BRICS summit in Brazil later this month. This marks Xi's first absence from the meeting since he took office. The economic summit brings together primarily 5 major developing countries: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. On Wednesday, Beijing said Premier Li Qiang will attend the BRICS summit on behalf of Xi. No explanation was given for Xi Jinping's absence. A former Chinese official told NTD that Xi sees the BRICS summit as a key diplomatic stage and has never missed the meeting since 2013. He linked Xi's absence to possible health issues. But others see things differently. Retired General Mike Flynn recently posted on X calling on the Trump administration to watch for a clear power shift inside the Chinese regime. Flynn served as National Security Advisor during President Trump's first term. Zooming out, the public has noticed signs of Xi's power waning since last year, when his loyalists in top military positions were purged or disappeared from public view. About a month ago, Xi disappeared from the public eye for 2 weeks with no explanation, a rarity during his rule. On Monday, the Chinese Communist Party's top leadership, the Politburo, announced a new group to oversee all major state affairs, a move seen as a challenge to Xi's power base. More subtle signs followed. On Thursday, Beijing's mouthpiece, The People's Daily, published a lengthy tribute to former Premier Li Keqiang. Li was widely seen as a political opponent of Xi. 2 years ago, Li died suddenly in Shanghai, sparking rumors about the regime's internal struggles, comments that were largely censored in China. Now, 2 years later, Beijing's open praise of Li has fueled fresh speculation about Xi's waning power. Taiwan is gearing up for its largest annual military exercise, the Hanquan Drill. This year, the exercise will include a new urban resilient segment. It's designed to test the whole society's ability to respond and survive in the event of a likely Chinese invasion. The live-fire portion of the Hanquan Drill will run from July 9th to the 18th, doubling the length of previous years. This year's scale is unprecedented, with 22,000 reservists taking part. Among the key areas being tested, Taiwan's ability to counter disinformation, push back against the Chinese Communist Party's United Front tactics, protect critical infrastructure, and conduct evacuation drills at major hypermarkets.
All our various combat capabilities rely on this exercise to deter the CCP from its position of wanting to invade.
Taiwan's military says if the Chinese Communist Party takes any provocative action during the drill, its forces will shift to a heightened state of readiness to respond. The de facto U.S. ambassador to Taiwan reaffirmed American support for the island on Wednesday. He made the remarks during a U.S. Independence Day celebration held in Taiwan's capital.
We often talk about the fact that when America wins, Taiwan wins. In addition to the more than $40 billion of foreign military sales we have congressionally notified since 2010, the U.S. government is making available more than $2 billion in assistance to deliver critically needed asymmetric capabilities on an accelerated timeline.
Green added that he expects both Taiwan's government and opposition parties to back the national defense budget, especially in light of growing threats from China. Taiwan's Vice President Xiaobi Kim emphasized that the U.S. and Taiwan share core democratic values.
We believe a strong Taiwan will be better capable of contributing to global prosperity, including America's goals of reindustrialization and technological leadership, particularly in AI and frontier industries.
During the event, both officials wore Taiwan and U.S. team jerseys, a symbolic gesture showing the two countries are on the same team. Coming up, flood season hitting southern China. A 5-story building under construction suddenly falling into a river. A look at the dramatic footage. Infighting at the top of the Chinese Communist Party and signs Xi Jinping's grip on power may be slipping. What could come next? Our expert breaks it down. And France slapping tens of millions of dollars in fines on Chinese online retailer Shein. The company faces accusations of misleading consumers through deceptive business practices. That and more in just a minute here on China in Focus. Welcome back to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Flood season in China is causing serious damage. A 5-story building under construction in southern China suddenly collapsed into a river. Footage shows the structure sinking within seconds. Video released Thursday shows a 5-story building under construction in southern China collapse into a nearby river. Footage captured the structure sink within seconds as the ground beneath it suddenly gave way. Local media reported that the river flowing through the area experienced its worst flooding in recent days, dating back to 2005. Parts of China are bracing themselves for more flash floods and landslides amid the national annual plum rains. The weather is named for a coinciding with plums ripening along the river during the East Asia monsoon season. Chinese state media reports that a new group was formed Monday at the very top of the Chinese Communist Party to oversee major state affairs. Experts say this is one of the many signs that regime leader Xi Jinping's power has been diminishing. NTD and the Epoch Times have been reporting on the shift for weeks. To discuss, NTD's Carrie Dunst was joined by Gregory R. Copley, president of the International Strategic Studies Association.
Greg, thanks for joining. Without a transparent election process, China insiders must decode a series of signals to actually understand what's really happening. What's the latest with the power struggle for control of what is the world's second largest economy and certainly a rising military?
Well, already the power has shifted away from Xi Jinping. He wasn't involved in the negotiations for the new China-US trade deal and was very angry about that and angry at the agreement which was reached. So he's clearly out of the picture now. The interim grouping may not be fully resolved yet, and I think we have to see the August meetings coming up, and perhaps even the Beta elders group to confirm it in perhaps November. So yes, the shift has occurred. We have to now finalize the deal. What's been apparent from all of this is that it is the U.S. has been very significant in this, and the Communist Party of China elders want to ensure that there's a smooth transition, that it doesn't look like Xi Jinping has been ousted in an internal coup or anything like that. They want to make it look like a smooth transition, maybe even keep Xi in some nominal position, a figurehead position, whilst they re-attract foreign investment and foreign trade. So that's very, very significant. It means it's a soft landing for China.
And do you see Xi's potential demise as related to the loyalists of who, or is another group rising? And in either case, what can we expect the priorities of this new power base?
So they're looking at where do they go from here. I think more money will go into internal security, suppression of public outrage, if you like, over the poor economic conditions, because right now they're going to have a lot of internal dissent for the next few years to come at the very least. And as I say, I think President Trump has allowed, in a sense, because of these trade deals negotiated without Xi Jinping, that he's allowing the Communist Party of China a soft landing. In other words, what we'll see is the potential for the Communist Party of China to rebuild its control over the country instead of seeing the country itself go into freefall and with the complete overthrow in a revolution against the Communist Party. So Xi out, Communist Party given another stay of execution.
Greg Copley, thank you so much.
Thank you.
A major blow to a Chinese retail giant in Europe. France has fined online retailer Shein tens of millions of dollars over deceptive commercial practices. Let's zoom in. France's antitrust agency announced today that it had fined Chinese fast fashion retailer Shein $47 million. The French regulator accused the company of deceptive business practices. Infinite Style e-commerce handles sales for the Shein brand and has accepted the fine. The antitrust agency said Infinite Style e-commerce had misled customers about discounts. The year-long investigation examined thousands of products on Shein's French site between 2022 and 2023. The probe found that 57% of advertised deals were not offering a lower price. Britain is rolling out a new foreign influence registration scheme to protect national security. But despite years of reports about Chinese spy operations in the UK, China is excluded from the top tier of this program. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson has more.
Agents working for foreign states must now register their roles in the UK under a new foreign influence registration scheme. Russia and Iran are both under the most stringent top-tier requirements, but China has been left off this enhanced tier. The scheme requires anyone carrying out political influence activities on behalf of a foreign power to register with the British government or face prosecution. The rules cover activities such as political communications or lobbying, and were introduced in 2023 as part of efforts to strengthen national security. Agents working for states under the enhanced tier are required to declare any activity, not just political work. British Security Minister Dan Jarvis said this is about creating accountability and visibility so that covert influence operations have nowhere to hide. Following the announcement in April that Russia would be included in the enhanced tier, Conservative Shadow Home Secretary Chris Phil said it was astonishing that China had not received similar treatment. He accused the government of prioritizing economic links over national security. Beijing has been repeatedly accused of seeking to covertly influence British politics and academia. In 2023, the Intelligence and Security Committee said China has successfully penetrated every sector of the UK's economy. It also said China is engaged in aggressive interference in academia to ensure criticism of China is suppressed. Later that year, the UK's Domestic Security Service, MI5, said Chinese spies had covertly approached more than 20,000 people in the UK. It came amid worries that cutting-edge research was being stolen from businesses by China. Member of Parliament Ian Duncan Smith asked on X why the government decided China doesn't pose a significant threat. He highlighted numerous issues, such as China's daily cyber attacks on the UK, the threat to invade Taiwan, China's support of Russia's invasion of Ukraine and for Iran, and the genocide of the Uyghurs, and said that given all this, China should be treated as a threat to the UK. Luke de Pulford, co-founder and executive director of the Interparliamentary Alliance on China, said that without the more stringent requirements on China, British police and security services will have fewer tools to address Chinese influence activities. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News.
That's all for today's China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. If you have any feedback on the show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at chinainfocus@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you. For on-the-clock original news coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.